Now, university students have been forced to find alternative accommodation just a week before their courses start. This after landlords have agreed to move migrants into luxury halls instead.
Well, the Home Office plans to move hundreds of asylum seekers into a 405-bed HD1 tower in Huddersfield with its very own cinema room and gym.
It's much nicer than my student
Well, much nicer than mine as well. Should students be making way for migrants? That's our question this morning.
Well, joining us to discuss this is the former MEP and current Reform UK party advisor, Ben Habib, and the Refugee and Asylum Rights Director at Amnesty International, Steve Valdez-Symonds. Steve, let's start with you. Have we got this story right? I mean, it seems almost unbelievable to me that students expecting to move into this particular accommodation have been told suddenly that they can't.
Well, I think the only thing that perhaps you're not quite getting right in this story is who's responsible. Students are being made to make way, essentially, for the Home Secretary. She has created an ever-growing, enormous backlog of people who are stuck in her asylum system, and she is casting around ever more widely, at ever more great expense, for places simply to put people. And unless and until she starts determining the claims of the people so that people can get out of her system, either allowed to stay because they are entitled to asylum, or steps taken to return them to places they have come from if they are not, if she will not decide the claims, the backlog will get bigger, and the Home Office will keep casting around for ever more places to essentially store people.
OK, Ben Habib, let's put this over to you then. Is this the fault of the Home Secretary?
Well, I can't disagree with anything Steve said. I mean, as a matter of fact, if you don't deal with the asylum applications, you're going to have a whole load of people needing accommodation. And whichever way you cut this cake, it seems to me that there's no change out of £50,000 a year to house, feed, care for, and provide cash and other services to an asylum seeker. If you look at the cost of the BB barge, that works out at about £50,000 per head. If you look at hotels, it works out at about £50,000 a head. And even though the student accommodation, which is an affront to the students and obviously to the university town, is much cheaper on the face of it, actually the cost of £200 a week, I think, which is the cost of a flat, doesn't include all the ancillary services which are going to be needed to be provided. So last year, and this is the big thing for the United Kingdom, I think, leaving aside the social implications of unbridled illegal migration, the big thing was that it cost us £4 billion to look after about 80,000 people. And of course, that bill is rising. It's rising quite fast. And unless we get a grip of the problem, we're not going to find any way out of this, either economically or from a social fabric perspective, in any time soon. And the only way to get rid of the problem, the only way to stop it, to stop the problem from getting bigger, is to stop the boats in the channel and turn them round. Yes, we've got to deal with those that have already made it to our shores, but unless we want to be completely overrun, our hotels taken over, our student accommodation taken over, we've got to get the political courage and will required to enforce our international rights under the UN Convention of Law of the Sea, stop the boats as they seek to illegally enter our territorial waters and turn them round. That is the only solution. We can go on about the ECHR, leaving the European Convention of Human Rights. We can go on about new domestic legislation like the Illegal Migration Act, Nationality and Borders Bill. We can come up with cockamamie plans like Rwanda. Nothing's going to work. The only thing that will work is actually physically stopping the boats and sending them back to France, which, just to remind viewers, is a completely safe country.
And Steve, what do you say to that? Because there are people like Ben who make the case that that's the humane thing to do. It stops people drowning at sea.
If anyone takes a look and pauses for a moment at the boats overcrowded with people, plainly not seaworthy, and what it would mean to try and intercept by simply turning back one of those boats, they will quickly understand that is a fast route to essentially murdering people at sea. We will see many more capsizes and many more deaths. Of course, that is not in keeping with international law, which requires all nations, and not just nations for that matter, people at sea, to protect human life. There is one way and one way only out of the utter mess the government has created. It is to stop listening to Mr. Habib and others. It is to get back to the business that we expect of every other nation, particularly those in Europe who receive many more people into their asylum systems. It is take your responsibilities that arrive on your shores, process the claims of the people who do so, manage a fair and efficient asylum system, and grant refuge to those who are entitled to it. We demand France does that, and on the whole, to a far larger extent than us, it does so. But for some people, particularly people who have strong connections here, there will continue to be journeys if we provide no alternatives. So deal with their claims, please.
OK, Ben Habib and Steve Valdez-Symonds, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And thank you for your thoughts as well. I'm afraid we're out of time, Ben Habib. Otherwise, we would, of course, come back to you. Do let us know what you make of that debate there. What side do you sit on? Let us know what you think. Should students make way for asylum seekers? GBNews at GBNews.com.
Neither Ben nor Steve wanted students to make way for asylum seekers, but
No.
huge differences of opinion there on how to deal with the numbers that are coming in the first place. Really interesting. No doubt you'll have a view. GB Views at GBNews.com.
Now, junior doctors and consultants